Welcome to the CWC Podcast with your host, David Selby, Justin Reed, and Andy Horton.
All right, welcome to the CWC Podcast, the home for the latest news, rumors, and interviews around the sport of chuckwagon racing. I'm your host, David Selby, and I'm joined by my co-host, Andy Horton, and we have Savannah joining us as a co-host today as well. Welcome, Savannah, and welcome everybody to our 40th episode of the podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Good. I'm doing
Fantastic.
Well, that's good because we're going to be celebrating the entire show, knowing that it's our 40th show, which doesn't necessarily equate to 40 weeks as we have our weekly cadence, but it's getting up there. So This past weekend, we traveled to Sparkman, Arkansas for the Cowcutter Chuckwagon Races, and things got wet. Maybe not quite as wet as they could have gotten, but we still got a good downpour on Friday night through Saturday. Would it have been better off if it were held on another weekend? Well, we're going to talk about it. But we had a good race on Sunday, and we have champions who went home with some bling. It's all coming up on the CWC Podcast. So what's up, guys? Did you like my intro? Was it good?
Oh, yeah.
I do it for the people, try to make it sound really shiny, if you can hear shiny.
You got the
sure.
voice of the people.
Let's go
here.
with that. The voice of the people. I like
We don't actually know how Savannah's going to act today. She might just totally tear it all apart and like speak for all the people that listen to the show all the time and be like, "Hey, just so you know, this stuff that you do, not a fan." But Savannah, you're down in Arkansas, so at least you're replacing Justin, who normally is in Arkansas. Savannah would normally be up here in Nevada. So tell us where you hang out. You look like you're on a front porch somewhere.
I'm actually on a back porch. I'm in Bentonville, Bella Vista-ish. I got here at like 11 o'clock last night, so I'm not exactly sure where I am, other than Northwest Arkansas area.
Just on somebody's porch. Doesn't look like they were home. Good Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Man, Savannah and I went down to Sparkman this weekend. We had a big weekend. What'd you do this weekend, Andy?
Well, I stayed a whole lot drier than you did, so I'll rub that in every chance I get.
Yeah, no snow.
No snow. I mean, it was in the forecast like it was possible, for that area, which is really your neck of the woods. We were at Carthage, so about an hour away from you, I think. We were at a reining horse show, and so we did our video coverage and photos for the reining horse people.
Did you feel like it was a sweet success? Did it all go according to plan?
I think attendance suffered a lot just because of the weather forecast, even though it was an indoor arena. Not everything, you can't do everything indoors. You still got to drive in it. You still got to deal with it. So I think there was quite a few people that backed out because of that. So, as far as that's concerned, it could have been better. But other than that, I mean, from our team's end, we did fine. I don't think we didn't have any major equipment failures or anything like that. Everything went pretty smooth.
Yeah, nothing you hadn't seen before. Savannah's very nicely, appropriately filling in for Justin today. We're not going to force her to do a weather segment, but we forced her into Arkansas, so we made her travel a little bit, but she's representing well. So Savannah is already requesting days off from work, Andy. And
what?
Yeah, I know. We just got started.
In my defense, I had these things planned prior to starting, and I just had a slight change of plans this week. So I came in, was like, hey, heads up. These are pre-planned. Can you approve them? I don't have anything scheduled after these requests.
Well, if it, being that I am a very, very nice boss and very lenient. So what are you doing with your days off, Savannah?
I'm going to spend some time with family, and I'm going to see Cross-Canadian Ragweed in Oklahoma.
Ah, okay.
I'm very excited.
Nice.
Yeah. And what did you say? You celebrating something? Are you celebrating something?
Yes, my 26th birthday is this Thursday. So I'm celebrating by going to see Theo Vaughn with a friend.
Yes, happy birthday! Because when everybody hears this, it's gonna be birthday time basically. But
yes.
Happy birthday, Savannah, and congratulations on your liberation from legally being able to be covered under your parents' insurance. So
I don't know if that's liberating or terrifying.
That's the real big step into the real world.
That's no joke.
Why is it 26? That's what I want to know. Why is it not like everything else? Like you can smoke when you're 18, you can drink when you're 21, but
yeah,
you're going to be like, what's going on?
My theory. So I get 18 because a lot of 18-year-olds are still living at home. So I almost wonder if that correlation has something to do with your average length of time in college before the average young adult would actually be able to afford or obtain their own insurance policy outside of their parents. But yeah. I don't know. That's just my best guess.
I think it's just to punish parents. I don't really think that it has anything to do with any of that. I'm not really sure though. But I guess if you can, as a taxpayer in the big world, you think about paying for your kids and you think I don't know. Maybe that's what they expect. I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Does this
26
mean that
years old.
Cutting your kids off of your insurance at 18? Like,
yeah, I mean,
you can join the armed forces, get some insurance there.
Yeah, cutting them off. You hit kindergarten, you're off the insurance. You pull some weight. You pull your own weight around here.
Listen, kindergarten versus senior year of college, that's quite a disparity.
Well, yeah, no kidding, right?
But look at what kind of resources kids have these days. Like by the time they're 6, they should have learned all these things through their devices. They could they could already build their own house probably based on do-it-yourself YouTube videos.
Just make sure they have a good understanding of finance and saving, and I think they'll be okay.
Don't get me on my soapbox, okay? Stevie's Force. We've got 2 more years of paying for everything,
No lemonade stands? No raking people's yards?
We live in a neighborhood of like all old people, and so if she did a lemonade stand, it would either go really well or it would be like complete crickets, like nothing at all.
Right.
Get her a lawnmower. Help her start a lawn mowing business.
A lawnmower? Yeah. Well, I don't know what the age is for being able to operate a lawnmower, but our HOA I'll have to go ask them about it. But anyways, I had a long weekend. It started on Thursday last week. I went down and talked with Dan and Peggy and Dapple Oaf. One thing I failed to mention on the show prior to now is that Dapple and Zane got engaged when they were on vacation in Moab, Utah with Dapple's 3 girls. Congratulations to those guys. Super happy for them. 7 years of dating, and they finally decided it's time. So we're excited for them. And it was like a weird thing. She actually, I had been talking to her, like messaging her whenever they were like driving back, and she sent me a picture and she was like, look, we got engaged. I knew about it. And then the Facebook algorithm or something like never fed me the post that she made where she was like, we're engaged. Here's the photo. And so I've just been keeping it under wraps, like not talking about it, not telling anybody. And then I saw her on Thursday and I was like, so when can we like tell people, It's been a while. And she was like, oh, we've already announced on Facebook. I was like, what? So yeah. So anyways, I checked Facebook and sure enough, like I know if I would have seen it, I would have reacted like, heart or, congratulations or something on there or shared it or whatever. But sure enough, I totally missed it. So that's my bad. We were talking about season 3 of the Great Wagon Race. We went and ate at Hogs and Heifers. Andy and I like going there to hurt our backs before we do podcasts.
Yeah, we like to pick up about 70 pounds of camera gear and then like awkwardly do a twisting motion to close the door and then just destroy our back. Yeah, it's great. It's good. It's good pastime.
You grinded through the show good though, and
it was a grind.
We went there and ate though. It was good, and but yeah, I shot a little bit of footage that day with those guys at the furniture store. The rain was coming in. Weather was coming into town already on Thursday, and talked with Dan and Peggy a little bit. Talked with Dapple about story and some of the key focuses that we'll have in season 3, outside of it being the 40th anniversary. Lo and behold, our 40th show, we're talking about the 40th anniversary of the National Championship Chuckwagon Races.
Absolutely.
That's a key topic, but we'll focus on the big mules division which is a division we haven't really hit on too much, other than in season 1 we kind of hit on it, and then something that has eluded us the first 2 seasons almost entirely was the rookies. And I think it was because that was the way it was supposed to happen, because we're focused on the classic division, we're focused on the buckboard division in the 1 and season 2 respectively, and there was just not a lot for us to really chase after on those rookie days. And it was also just a little bit outside of our means to like cover it really, really well, or just go chase a random story outside of what we were planning on doing. And so
Sure.
I think it was all kind of meant to happen that we're going to focus on the rookies more here. There's usually more rookies for big mules anyways. And so I think it's going to open some doors there for the storytelling. And so knock on wood, we're going to focus more on the rookies. We're going to try to expand this season back out to 7 episodes like we did with season 1. Season 2 was 5 episodes.
Okay.
And so excited about all that. And then giving the whole event story arc a little bit more, where it was so much like within the week on those first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
The goal is to get out and do a little bit more filming, like I just did this last weekend. Like, hey, this is what's happening in the off season. People are getting engaged and planning weddings, and I think it'll be really cool to go capture the camp cleanup, is what they call it down there at Clinton, which I've never been to, but that's where they actually open the gates and they say Oklahoma Land Rush version style, everybody run in there, tag your campsites and do what you're going to do to kind of give yourself a little bit of that pre-planning to being there for like 8 or 9 days or whatever people do. And so I think it'll be cool to kind of capture the full story arc of the event from the kind of the campers or the spectators perspective, the people that actually go and spend their vacation there every year. Savannah, have you ever gone and done the camp cleanup? Have you ever gone and like been there before the event started?
Yeah. So it's been several years since I actually went and participated and helped getting camp set up. But Brian and them never fails every year. They're the first ones there to set up our campsite, and they'll get there at the wee hours of the morning, sometimes tail end like 11:30 midnight, depending on their schedules, and they'll wait in line. I think this last year, Brian said that they had gotten there so early, he fell asleep in the driver's seat waiting in line, and Buddy had to get out, walk around, come wake him up, and get it moving again. We'll bring our trailers. If there is a trailer that can be left that's not going to be needed for livestock, we'll go ahead and set it up. If not, it's really just bringing in panels, making sure it's clean, making sure everything is where it needs to be, moving any limbs or moving any limbs that might have fell around. That's really about it.
Yeah. I think that if you don't know about it, the name camp cleanup can be a little bit misconstrued or a little bit misunderstood. It's really for you to go in and get your camp ready. I'm not sure what, like when we get closer, we'll probably hit on this stuff, but I don't remember what all the like rules are. I don't know if you're allowed to like throw down, spray for ticks and stuff like that. Cause it's a working cattle ranch. So I don't know if they really want people putting any chemicals down, but anyway, we're going to tell the story on that. So I'm excited about that. I think it'll be cool to take people kind of on that journey of going to the races while maybe the first 2 seasons were like, hey, here's the history, here's the sports story, here's the education on what these divisions are. I think it'll be cool to kind of focus on the event a little bit more this year. And so those are things that we're going to focus on, and it's a lot to bite off. There's actually several things that I've already kind of been like, well, maybe we won't focus on that and that and that so much. The Outrider story being one of them. I think we'll tell the Outrider story, but I think we'll do it through telling the story of the big mules and maybe not get way off in the weeds. So it's hard. There's so many things that you want to go and bite off with doing one of these seasons of talking about the national championships. And there's a lot of stuff. You start really looking at it. We didn't have a lot of time to plan last year as we were getting ready for season 2 because we were just finishing season 1.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a good time. Anyways, like season 1 and season 2, that season 3 will be on the Chuckwagon channel exclusively. So make sure you go over and subscribe and relive the ride at chuckwagonchannel.com. It's $11 a month or $99 a year. Don't forget, you can see season 2 right now. It's all on there. in its entirety. So check it out. All right, moving on here to the news and notes. We had a big weekend down in Sparkman. Savannah and I went down there. We captured the weekend. We were definitely battling the elements a little bit this weekend, but we went into it knowing that we were prepared for that, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we will be preparing a video recap to submit that to the Cowboy channel to kind of show, hey, here's where the point standings are at. Here's what happened at this race. And we're excited to do that. This will be the first time that we've really been able to do that for one of these races. So, we'll share that video on our social media as well. But be excited about that. Hopefully that continues to give the sport and that event some exposure. But before we get to talking about the weather and maybe some of the more controversial points of the weekend, let's get the rundown on the Sparkman results. Savannah, take it away.
All right. So, takeaways. Standout youth rider, Riley Pillow from Bent Shake Ranch. She walked away with 2 belt buckles this weekend. First place in both ponies 8 and under and mules 8 and under. Ponies 8 and under time was 13:18, so 13 seconds and 18, whatever that little. I'm missing my
just math. Don't worry about it.
13.
Math.
Call it 13.18.
13.18 seconds. Okay. And she had a 17:20 in mules 8 and under. Closest race of the day was actually between Riley Pillow and Jack the Pennington. They were 1/100th of a second apart, which is insane. That was going to be in the ponies 8 and under. Our most dominant team from this weekend was Trump Train. They were everywhere. They placed first in mules 8 and under with Riley Pillow. They placed in 46 mules, 52-inch ponies, and also classics. Our fastest pony team, Shooting Blanks, put out a solid performance, took away first place in 42-inch ponies and buckboard. Big Horse Rubber Tire Freight Train took the win, but there was a pretty large spread between the first and the third place with over 45 seconds of a gap. Freight Train had a minute 18. Total Chaos had a minute 45.96. There were no entries recorded in Outriders 8 and under due to weather. A lot of people just couldn't get there, or I think maybe there were a few that had attended that felt a little iffy about the kids running on the track. Track did still end up staying smooth, slick. We didn't have any wrecks. Some divisions like 46-inch mules, 52-inch ponies only had one competitor. So they had a shoe-in win for that buckle, so long as they can make a good time. But other than that, it's a pretty smooth weekend. We didn't have a whole lot of teams, so we were able to run 2 iterations on Sunday, almost back-to-back, and it lasted about as long as a normal race day would have.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, they got started. So to kind of recap on that, they had they had weather Saturday, so they went ahead and pushed it all off so that it was running 2 races Sunday, and they started 2 hours earlier. So we got kicked off at 11 a.m. instead of the typical 1 p.m. And they ran that, took a little break, came back at 1:30, ran the second round, and then we went to the awards. And it's worth mentioning at the awards ceremony, I just have to go ahead and throw some kudos to the Berries, to Michael and Cecilia. They went all out on buckles, and prizes and raffle items and all these things. They really, really went hard to host this thing and do it well. And it's really unfortunate that the weather came in like it did. And kind of disrupted that, because they even had it set up to where for the awards, the top 3 places all got belt buckles, and you don't see that at every race. They were, you see that at the year-end awards, and there may be a couple other tracks that do that, but that's going above and beyond to be hospitable and to be a good host and to really make people, the racers, feel like they are a part of something. And if going in, hey, if we get 3rd place, we get a buckle. That's pretty dang cool. And they had some really, really nice buckles too. They had one little hiccup where I think because they ordered one buckle, or they ordered the buckles for the top 3 places, there was this discrepancy where they ended up getting one buckle for the top 3 places. And so everybody that got called up, the teams, each of them got one buckle, they didn't have enough buckles. They didn't realize that until they were literally calling them up there. And
On
you
that
know,
Oh
note,
man.
we do wanna put it out there. It
But
was not the Berries' fault. It wasn't the
no,
mail.
it
They
was
ordered the one set. I believe they got on the phone with
yeah, they're
whatever
getting it
company,
fixed.
and they'd only
No
been
problem.
sent one box of the two that were supposed to be coming. So it was just
Oh
a
yeah,
mass
everybody's
confusion.
going to
Also,
get their buckles.
so the
Yeah,
buckles exist. They
they're going to
made the
get them.
buckles.
They were
Oh
just in
yeah,
transit,
Okay.
and only one had actually arrived.
yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those things that ultimately just sucks because they're going to end up having to mail a lot of buckles out. But
I've experienced that
or
myself. Yeah.
yeah, this stuff happens. You know, these are
Yeah.
the little. It's the little stuff like this that it makes a story that you'll always tell that story. You know, that happened at that event, and it was a bummer. You know, for like maybe two people on the team, it made the team really become a team because they had to say who gets the buckle, and so I thought it was actually it was, if anything,
That
it's
could be.
comical. It is
Yeah.
not the end of the world. You know, people are going to get their buckles, whether it's through the mail or at the next association race. They're going to get them out there. You know, if it says anything at all to you to know, like, hey, they're trying to pay out 3 buckles for every division. Um, it
Yeah.
says a lot about the people, and they really, really worked hard to put on a good event, which probably factored into them having it when they had it, and not pushing off. But so everybody's going to get a buckle. No worries. The buckles are going to be coming through the mail. These things happen. It's okay. We're going to see everybody at the next association race. That's probably where most of these are going to get distributed, anyways.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Best opportunity.
there were some factors around the weekend, like weather and things like that, that maybe made things a little bit harder. But if you've
Yep.
been tuning in, you're surely aware that we've had a new segment, Precipitating Profanity, with Justin Reed. Well, he can't be here with us today because work is holding him out, but he did give us some notes to report on. He said, "This has been a crazy week and weekend for weather all around. Sparkman got, from the data I could pull, 7.66 inches of rain since the start of the month, and we're reading this on the 7th, so I mean that's really through yesterday,
Yeah.
which is not too bad when you think parts of Little Rock got 17 inches.
17 inches.
Yeah,
That's a flood.
I know.
That's a flood, guys.
That's a new lake. Like everybody's like, we have new bodies of water in Arkansas that didn't exist before. But
Wow.
since we're missing out on that segment, I thought, why not have a new segment? And so today's new segment is called Everyone is Right. And our goal is to tackle intense and controversial topics and show how everyone is actually right. Coincidentally, this segment falls on the same week that we had some weather woes down there in Sparkman. And I think it's important that we show how everybody maybe is in fact right about their opinion on the weather. So, there was some controversy, there was some discussion, there was some debate, maybe a little bit, maybe I'm leaving out some intense vocabulary there to describe everything that was said about this last weekend. It's the elephant in the room. It was the discussion about everything this weekend. We knew we were going into some weather this weekend, and we prepared for that. And I think everybody that went did, and there were a lot of people that didn't go, knowing that they were going to be experiencing some extreme weather this weekend. Let's just start. Justin's not here, but let's finish his quote to start this segment and throw him under the bus since he's not here. So he said, "While I respect." It's an incentive to be on the show, be on the show.
So we have to come on here to defend ourselves now. Oh my goodness. Wow.
All right,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Justin. Jeez.
Justin
I will
didn't know
never
about-
miss a podcast episode.
Justin didn't know about he didn't know about this segment, but I figured his quote was appropriate. So he says, I quote, "While I respect that they decided to still go through with their race, I do believe that there would have been a better turnout to reschedule. I know some people don't pay attention to what I say regarding the weather.
Oh no.
But the reason I do is so people are well aware of what could happen. Weather can change. It could have all the elements and not act out, or it could not look to be anything, and boom, it's something. I believe that the weather we predicted showed up and showed out. So that's the end quote. So Justin stands by what he predicted. And
Stand by your Justin.
Oh,
You know?
no. Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
hey, you know what? But I like it because, you know what? He has what some of us would call an educated opinion on what would happen with the weather. He stands by what he predicted, which I would say, based on my memory, I would say he predicted that there was going to be a lot of rain, that there was going to be some bad weather. Really, probably where you start. I mean, there's so many places you can start to kind of like pick things apart. It's like, you know, hindsight's 2020. So now we know how much it rained. Now we know when it rained. Now we know how it affected the track, how it affected the race, how it affected people's ability to get to the race. Um, you know, the the event was held, you know, largely based on the decision of the track. It ultimately does come down to the track owner's decision. And so Michael and Cecilia Berry and their team,
Sure.
you know, they live there. They experience what it's like to be on this property all the time. You know, this is their home. They get to see not as like, you know, people that live in the city that are like, hey, the weather says this. You know, these people live there. They know how their land responds to getting a lot of rain or whatever that is. And so, you
Yeah.
know, knowing that there's a lot of factors at play here. They know that if they reschedule, the days that they may be able to reschedule aren't going to be convenient. I know that you know, I don't know the whole story here. I know that some days that were thrown out at them, like July 4th kind of stuff, you know, like weekends that are tough,
Yeah.
or weekends that, you know, if you reschedule and you have to be backed up against another race, that's a factor. I'm not saying it is the factor, but I'm saying it's a factor. And
Sure.
and you have to make decisions with what you have at hand, and also being that they live there and they have the best working knowledge of what things are like on their property with a lot of rain. They decided that they would have the event, and and the association backed that. They said, you know, well, it's your decision. We're going to hold the race, and they did. The thing that the association definitely can do is show up and say, hey, it's not safe right now. It's not safe at the time of the race, and we
Yeah.
you know, we have to cancel because it's our judges, it's our team, it's, you know, all those things. And so they did cancel on Saturday. Saturday we showed up. Gosh, what time did we get out to the track? I don't know, 10.
Something like that. 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And we showed up and the weather was not good. It was raining and it had rained a lot. Well, maybe not quite as much there as it did in Arkadelphia, where I was staying about 35 minutes north of there. A lot of the stuff ended up missing them. And so, you know, like I was saying, everybody's right. The berries, they did say, hey, a lot of weather does miss us, and it kind of ends up curving to the north, and it really did. Until they did get a lot of rain Friday night going into Saturday. So, but not as much as people were calling for. I think up until Saturday, at the race, they'd only gotten a couple of inches. So Saturday it rained a lot, and kind of like Michael said, you know, like the ranch, or I guess their property, holds up well to that. The racetrack did hold up well. I mean, they went out and they ran on a pretty decent track. Yeah, they were moving slower. It was wet. It was a little bit mushy, but it wasn't torn apart. You know, some people were getting stuck trying to get in and out of there, and we have good footage of all that kind of stuff too. We get to, you know,
Oh, good.
show them bringing out the machinery and just pulling, you know, like you got one truck that got stuck trying to pull out another truck with a camper behind it, and then you get a chain between them, and then you get another chain leading up to their leading up to their big piece of equipment that comes out and pulls both of them out at the same time. It was
What
great.
was that? An excavator?
Nice.
I don't want to say the wrong thing and sound like an idiot, but
I'll
Big,
take that. I don't know what it was,
big,
but it was massive.
big piece of equipment. We might be able to plug that in whenever we show the show here. But yeah, I mean, we kind of knew that there was going to be rain and stuff, and then lo and behold, they kick everything to Sunday. Ended up being a fairly like no rain kind of day. It was chilly, but everybody got out there. Everybody ran. I thought it was actually a good day, Sunday. I thought it was a good day. What do you think, Savannah?
I was freezing, but I'm a cold-natured person. But in all the instances it would matter to the racers and the competitors, it was a good day. It was overcast. I don't think we had any rain Sunday when we were actually out there. I think I'd mentioned before we had no wrecks. I think there was a single outriding horse that kind of slid sideways in a turn and fell, but it was so quick. They said he made like a Pony Express mount back on and was up, finished the race, and I really think he caught the wagon. If not, it was very, very close.
Oh, wow.
So, not severe, not even problematic enough for them to have to walk out of the race. So that was good. No wrecks, no issues. We got some mud splattered on their faces in video footage, but that's the best I could see. People were in good spirits too.
Nice.
That's something else I noticed.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how well it went. And so, as far as deciding to have the event, I totally understand why they would have it. I think some of the concerns were more around, like having livestock out there through the weekend like people do, especially if there's going to be stormy weather. Putting livestock out, leaving it out. I don't have any livestock. Like Andy, I would like to get your 2 cents on this. You guys have some horses, so and you travel with them and you go to these events. What's your thinking if you were going into an event like this? You've been to Malvern and Clinton where we've had weather. How does that affect your decision making as far as like going to an event like this?
I mean, as far as just rain alone, I mean, that's not a deal breaker for us. But like you said, when you're talking stormy weather, I mean, obviously objects flying through the air is not good for anything. Doesn't matter if it's your horse, your vehicle, your whatever, I mean, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, if you're thinking that you're going to get, severe winds and, dangerous weather versus just wet weather. I mean, yeah, people get stuck. You can get people pulled out, maybe you break stuff doing it, but that's one thing. But, if you're thinking severe weather that could get you or an animal or something hurt, I understand the concern with that. And I mean, I also understand there's only so many weekends in a year or in a season. So I understand that too. And, when you're talking about backing a race up against another race, if you reschedule, that's not just necessarily just going to hurt the Cowcutter race. That could hurt the other race that it backs up to as well. So, I mean, there's consideration for the other events, for the other producers and stuff, the other track owners there that has to be taken too. So I can definitely see that. And I mean, I can see both sides of the coin there. So yeah, sure. I mean, if you're thinking tornadic weather or something like that, I could see, having some pretty big concerns about animals and stuff. But I can see it from the track owner's point of view too. So it's tough. I mean, not every decision's easy. I mean, is what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we are, as the Chuckwagon channel, we go to an event and it's our job to capture the story, capture what's happening. Obviously, we have a podcast where we can talk about this stuff. I just don't. I choose not to be, super political about it. But I also, I think that in this case, I just see where everybody can be right in their own, on their own, whatever they stand on, what their opinion is. And now, does that mean that if you think, wholeheartedly the event should not happen because there could be lightning there, this is going to be historically bad weather, you kind of break that down and it's like, I can see where some people think this is an absolute no-brainer. You don't have it. It's not safe for the animals. It's not safe for people that are traveling. It's not, for people who are traveling a long ways. What if they don't get to race at all? Then they just did all that traveling for nothing. I can understand the opinion in a radical way why you're not wrong to think that way.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you look on both sides of the coin, if you really put yourself in the shoes of the person that puts the event on, and you're faced with that decision of like, is it safe? Well, I know my land. I know how people are going to come out here. I know that they can get out here. I know that if the ground is wet, we have good ground. We're going to be able to race on this. We've raced on it before. We've raced in much worse situations. So is it not safe? I don't know that they were thinking that it would not be safe. So, I think that there's different opinions there. We're driving out here in our big trucks. We're driving out here with our livestock that are used to, being in a pasture, being in the weather. It almost boils down to a matter of opinion in my opinion. So I'm not saying that one is right over the other, but I'm saying I can see where everybody comes from on this deal. And I think it's worth saying that. The reason I even wanted to talk about this today is because I see the emotional side of this, and I see where there could be hard feelings or whatever. My whole point of talking about this is to try to present both sides, to maybe present some of the things that we don't all think about. I'm not saying anybody's wrong. There's a reason why this segment is called Everybody is Right, because I can see where everybody's right. I don't know. Savannah, you got any other thoughts on it?
No, I think you hit it on the head. I think hindsight's 2020. We have a whole lot more information today than we did heading into it Friday.
Right.
So you can only look at kind of your experience and what you know and what's being predicted and make a decision based on that. I will say two trains of thought here. Coming in Friday with the way that the sky looked, the way that the weather looked, I was terrified we were going to have a tornado. But also, as David mentioned, we had just had two, not one, but two, early in the morning, Wednesday, in our hometown of Nevada.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe had my emotions a little high. But we talked to Michael several times Friday afternoon. He was in good spirits. You could tell he was a little stressed, but it was more of a problem-solving stress, not, oh, God, this is an emergency stress. It's like, how can I make the most of what we have here, and how can I make everybody feel comfortable? How can I make sure everyone's accommodated? And that I really appreciated. He also mentioned that they were up on a higher area of Sparkman, and that they're not going to get a lot of flooding. So, when we left out about midday Saturday because of the rain, they had one main dirt road entrance in and out of the racetrack. And there was some standing water in 3 or 4 places.
On the exit side. Yeah.
Yes. And I had called David and I was like, hey, I can make it through right now. I'm a little worried that I won't be able to get back across in a couple hours with this raining more. So I went back a little later that afternoon. It was a little too high for me to want to chance it, but I've got a real short car that, is 2 to 3 feet shorter than all the tall trucks everybody else has that is used to that type of terrain. But then heading in Sunday morning, little to no standing water, and if it was like a little puddle on the edge of the road on that shoulder. It had all drained off, and I was very surprised by that. So Michael said the storm was going to skirt around them, and they had big equipment to pull people out. The track was going to be good, and the water was going to run off, and all of those things happened. So
Yep. And there's so many different factors or points to get caught up on. It's one thing to talk about safety, transportation, the economics of it, like, are we going to make money? Are we not going to make money? I think that they wanted to have their event, and they didn't want, I genuinely believe that they did not want to inconvenience another track by putting their event smack dab in front or behind of somebody else. Being that they are an Arkansas race, I actually think that gives them leverage over one of these races where people travel more. So, if you do move it to a time of the year, let's say they would have moved it, and I don't know what the options were. I don't know that they had many options. I don't know if they had a lot of options, but let's say that they moved their race to be a week off of the postponed race of Hurricane Mills. So people are like, well, I get a mulligan race. I get one race that's not going to count towards my year end.
Yeah.
If they would have put another Arkansas race in September or somewhere around there, what does that say for Hurricane Mills, who's already been tossed around the board, on their dates? So,
Right.
and I'm just talking about one factor, I'm just talking about the dates. So there's a lot of factors that go into making the decision. And I do genuinely believe that the Berries were not making the decision to have the race out of spite or to be, to be jerks to anybody. I mean, it was a decision that affected them greatly. They know that because they had it,
absolutely.
because they had it when they did, it hurt them drastically economically on what it could have been for them and their community, and they are aware of that. So just everything, just stuff I want to put out there for people. I know at this point maybe we're kicking a dead horse a little bit by keeping on talking about it, but I did think it was a really interesting thing as I navigated that weekend.
Yeah. Well, and everything that I said, I say without having heard a word. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. I just know, like, everything I've learned about this, I've learned right here while we've been talking about it. So I have no idea what was said. I have no idea. I wasn't there. I don't know what the place looked like. I don't know what the weather was doing, and so I'm just looking at it from an objective, or as objective as I can, which may not be super objective, but just, this is a situation. What would you do, if you were in each of these people's shoes? And so, I mean, I can see it from multiple directions there. And it's like you said, like, there is considerations when you're thinking about the other races that are going to be happening. And like I said, if you stack that behind a Hurricane Mills race or on one weekend to another or something like that, I mean, they've been absolutely run through the ringer. I mean, they need to have their event and not have something else, some other thing that hits them again after what they've dealt with. So yeah, like you said, that's one example. That's a good example.
Yeah. And for me, I went through that weekend where, if I would have had to make a decision, if I was Michael Berry, if I was Cecilia, I'm jumping on each side of the fence a little bit because I'm talking to them. I'm talking to the people at the race. I'm seeing this all happen. When the bad weather is coming in, I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool if this was another time. I'm thinking in different ways, but I'm also there on Sunday. I was there on Friday when it was honestly pretty great weather, even though it was like overcast and the rain was looming. It was actually great Friday. It was pretty fun to be out there Friday evening. And then you think about those road warriors that are like, we're going no matter what, Trump train, and they're out there, and then you think about like Kyle Fuller and their race team, and they're out there. They whipped them out on Saturday, and they went and ran in the rain for fun. Like you think about the people that they're like, hey, you know what? Let's make the best of the situation, and they made memories. So I go back and forth on, like, if I was faced with the decision, I'm not totally sure, but hindsight is 2020. And so my opinion, on the whole of the whole thing, I would say they would have probably stood a better chance of making money by postponing to another weekend. They would have probably had more people come. And so, from that standpoint, from like a business decision, I would say that they probably would have done better on another weekend. There would have been a lot of factors to face still had they rescheduled. But yeah, they ended up having a lot of teams that didn't come because of the weather, and that was their decision, and that's okay. And keep in mind, the ACWRA has this mulligan rule where you can miss one race and it won't count against you. And so they take your top 7 races. And so I know it's like hard to look at like the first race you're going to go to this season as being potentially your mulligan, and maybe that's going to force people to travel a little bit more, but that's sports, baby. That's part of it, and so that's why the mulligan is there. And it just makes it more interesting to me. So I hope that people don't lean away and that they lean into it.
Now, was there a conversation had that this race might have been considered kind of a forced mulligan race? I feel like I heard maybe some conversations out on the track where people were saying, oh, well, I hope that we have the option to decide or not. And maybe I misheard it. Did you hear anything similar to that?
One rumor, I saw one thing on Facebook about potential, creating another mulligan out of this, giving people another break on that because some people are of the opinion that it's life and death and, for animals and things like that. And again, that's their opinion and they are entitled to that and they are not wrong just because there wasn't a tornado, right? Lightning is a factor, strong winds are a factor and everybody has to make those decisions on their own. The nature of this sport is that you're going to be outdoors. You're going to deal with Mother Nature. And that could help you. It could hurt you. Some horses run better in the rain. Some ponies run better in the rain, mules. It's different for everybody. And that's part of the nature of the beast. And I think that everybody understands that. I really do. I do think that when, emotions aside, I think everybody knows that there are extremes that are going to come along with racing in this sport. And so I'm sure that there are people that are upset after the weekend. I'm sure that the Berries are upset for certain reasons. I'm sure that people that are racers and everybody else that are involved, there's reasons to be upset about things. But I'm here to try to present all sides of it. I'm here to talk about it. I'm not here to argue with people about it. I'm not here saying I'm planting my flag on one thing or another. I really genuinely want to see the sport succeed and survive and flourish. And so I'll finish by saying I thought it was a really fun a fun showing out of some of the youth this weekend, and I was just glad to see kids going out there and running and having a great time and getting a good experience. There was a moment where even for kids that were just there at the ranch, they were out there playing in the puddles, playing in the mud and the rain, and they enjoyed themselves. So there were great memories made this weekend. We hope to tell that story and show that through what we do. So appreciate everybody that did show up and no hard feelings against the people that didn't. That is completely your decision, and I respect everybody on the decision that they made. So any final thoughts from anybody on that before we kind of move on?
I'm throwing in a vote to have t-shirts made that says I've survived Cowcutter 2025. Someone mentioned that to Michael Berry. I love that idea. I think we need decal stickers as well. Just throw that on top.
I don't think that it has to be passive aggressive. I think that it really, I just genuinely think that you got to make light out of what the situation was this weekend. And if those t-shirts are made and I see somebody wearing them, I'll have a chuckle. I think it's fun.
Yes.
The weekend happened and let's make the best of it. So anyways, thanks for sticking with us this long. If you did stick around, next week, we're going to be back in action and we are bringing Trent Little on the show to talk about the newest Chuckwagon race, the Reggie Little Outlaw Race, which will be held on the first weekend of August in Glen, Mississippi. We want to get him on the show and talk to him. And actually, this weekend, I will be traveling out to Glen, Mississippi to do some filming with them on a work weekend when they're getting the track ready. So, they are very, very all in on making it a great event they want to make it a great venue. They've told me based on their prices and the way they're setting it all up that they want to create the best possible experience for the people that come to their event. So I'm excited to go out there and tell their story a little bit. So anyways, make sure you guys subscribe and relive the ride at chuckwagonchannel.com. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for tuning in and supporting what we do, and we will see you out on the track.
The glorious thing, feeling. I don't remember the words. Filming.
We're still filming. That's right. What's up, buddy?
How's it going out here today?
Getting a little wet.
Getting a little wet.
It's going.
So what's the plan for the rest of the day?
We're fixing to find a dry spot and drink some cold beer.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the CWC Podcast.